palm fronds by Easter around our house from Palm Sunday. And when Easter morning came, the big thrill was to get out of bed and try to put my shoes on, because my mother would always put a colored Easter egg in our shoe. And so it started the day off with laughter every year. And so this afternoon I'll be calling my brother. I talk to him every week back in Ohio, and I always ask him tonight, did you find an egg in your shoe? And he goes, geez, I'm like, how long ago was that, But you just never forget it. And then we would always have new clothes to wear to church, and that was a real wonderful thing for us. And then we would go to my grandmother's house in Fort Laramie, Ohio, and Grandma was so sweet. She had all these grandkids, about 12 of us, and all year long she would eat Cheerios for breakfast every day. And on the Cheerios box is a little coupon that she would cut off and save, because they had a catalog that you have enough coupons, you can get things for kids. So she would make Easter baskets out of all these things for all the Cheerios she ate during the year. It was so sweet. It was just so sweet. So I have a real fondness for Easter. But my take on Easter changed when I came here. It just wasn't about bunnies and eggs and Jesus rising. It was more about me and my personal blossoming. Where was I in this? Where was I in finding my own beauty within? And that's a whole different story, so I'm not going to tell you about that. But I heard that Carl Jung, the great psychologist, said this. He talked about the morning of our life, kind of about the ages 18 to 40, and then the afternoon of our life, from about 40 to 70 years old. And he said the truths that we have in the morning of our life become lies at the afternoon of our life. And I thought, that's really deep. What is he trying to say? And luckily, I was listening to a CD by Wayne Dyer, thanks to Cheryl, and he helped explain this. He had read a book called Quantum Change. It was the work of two main psychologists, William Miller and Janet Baca, who did a major study with thousands of people over many, many years. What they did is they invited anyone who had had a quantum experience, one of those aha moments where you go, aha, I get it, I am a child of God, or whether you had one of those mystical moments where you felt the presence of God, invited them to come in and share. And then they followed them, and they listened to their stories and listened to what their values were before this quantum experience. And the results of their study years later was how that quantum experience changed their values, how it changed their relationships, how it changed their whole life. So that's what their book is about. So I'm going to share some of that with you because, as Jung called it, the afternoon of our lives, we do find a shift in values, our relationships with people, our emotions, our behavior changes from this quantum experience. And I'll share when mine occurred was in college days in late 20s. And I was at a party at a farm in Mount Victory, Ohio, and it was about midnight. And the music was blasting and people were dancing, and I wandered out into the darkness, into this cornfield that had just been harvested. And I just sat down in the middle of this field. And when I looked up, there were at least 1 million stars. I mean, talk about a clear sky. But then I couldn't even think because there were at least 1 million crickets singing. If you can even think of imagining that, I was so totally surrounded by the warm, loving energy of God. It was a high impact. So for this study, people were asked about their values in the morning of life. What was most important to you? And then later, after the quantum experience, how did that change, maybe 15, 20 years later? And it's different for men and it's different for women. So I'm going to call it before the QE, the quantum experience, and then after, 10 years after the QE, just so I don't totally bore you with those words. But for the men, usually around 20 to 30 years old, the number one value before the QE was wealth. Got to make money. Got to accumulate money. Men are going to be the breadwinner of the family. It was almost programmed into them at that time. So there was always a lot of talk about how you're going to get better and get more financially stable and financially independent. But about 10 or 15 years after the QE, the number one value for men shifted to spirituality, feeling a sense of being close to God. The second value prior to the QE was a sense of adventure. Let's go out and go skiing. Let's jump out of an airplane. Let's do this. Let's do that. You know, that young energy where you just got to have an adventure. You got to do those macho things. But after the QE, sometime after that, the second value became personal peace. Feeling a sense of peacefulness and letting go of all the stress of trying to be staying up with the Joneses, staying up with the other guys, staying up with that macho energy. The third value for men prior to the QE was achievement. Climb the ladder of success, get that promotion, get promoted, get those goals going. But after the QE, the third value was caring for family, making sure your family's loved and cared for. The fourth value prior to the QE, these quantum experiences, was having a sense of pleasure. Let's go out and get laid. Let's have, you know that energy? Yeah. Let's have some drinks. Let's have some fun. Let's have a good time. But after the QE, it became living to God's will, whatever it was for them. The fifth value prior to the QE was to be respected. A man has to be respected. But after the QE, the fifth value was honesty. I want to be known as someone who's honest. The sixth value prior to the QE was having fun, no worries. Just have a good time, no worries. But after the QE, the sixth value was humility, letting go of the ego. You really don't have to be better than everybody else. Now for women, quite different, as you can imagine, because we're different. For women, the first value in their teens and early 20s before this quantum experience was having and raising a family. Anybody relate? That's what we do. But after the QE, 10, 15 years later, the number one value became personal growth. I am a good mother, I am a good wife, now it's time for me. It's important to be a well-rounded good person. The second value prior to the QE for women was to have a sense of independence. Boy, I heard that from my mom. You've got to become a secretary because you'll always be able to get a job. You'll always be independent. That was drilled in me, and I was a good secretary for a long time, which is why I'm good at taking minutes at these meetings here. But after the QE, after that experience, sometime after that, the value turned into self-esteem, feeling good about myself. I'm valuable and worthy as a human being. I'm not just a servant to others. That's a good wake-up for women anytime. The third value prior to this experience was having a career. But after, the third value turned into seeking spirituality. There's something about that afternoon of life when we've had that quantum experience that we really want more of it. The fourth value prior to the QE for women was just to fit in, to be accepted, not different. Now, in Catholic school, I wore a uniform for 12 years, so you couldn't be different. And when you tried, you got taken to the office, and you had to take the pleats out of your skirt, and you had to, hem them back up or take the hem out. Anyway, fitting in was hard in uniforms. But after a QE, a quantitative experience. The fourth value was happiness. You didn't just have to fit in. You wanted to be happy. Fifth value for women prior to the QE was being attractive. Attracting that partner, that someone who will love you. But in the afternoon, that value turned into generosity. I want to be seen as a generous person. I want to help the world. Big shift in values. And the sixth value prior to the QE was to be loved, to have someone to love you. But after that quantum experience, after a few years, really what you wanted to do was offer forgiveness. Forgiveness to anybody who tried to make you into something else, whether it was a teacher or your neighbors or your parents or a spiritual leader. They felt connected to God, they had self-esteem, so they could now forgive anything that had to be forgiven. So just maybe hearing these today might help you think about what has been suppressed in your life, what might need to be resurrected, lifted up. Because we're all moving from the morning to the afternoon, and some of us into the evening of life. And for those who have quantum experiences, that higher viewpoint of feeling one with God gives us a whole different perspective, which is why Jung said we cannot live the afternoon of life according to our morning program. So this book, Quantum Change, is all about the stories people told in their quantum experiences and how they changed their life. So it might be something of interest to you. If you haven't had a quantum experience, invite one. Invite one in. Like I had mine in a cornfield in Ohio at midnight. I was talking to Marilyn, she said, I had one when I was pulling on a boot. You know, I mean, they just come, you never know. And I invite you to invite one in. You can do this in nature, looking at the cherry tree in the back, talk to the cherry tree, I don't know what'll happen. Sitting in the rose garden, taking a walk, sitting in your favorite chair at home. It's available, and it will change your life. That's this fascinating journey of the soul that we're all on. It's so fascinating. And I'll bet when you have one of these quantum experiences, you may wake up Easter morning with an egg in your shoe. Thank you.
Good morning. So I am the transition person, trying to blend eggs in shoes to the crucifixion. Not too challenging. Could that be my quantum leap? Excuse me. So I'm happy to see you all here, and I have these beautiful flowers, and then the essence of all of you to speak to, and this beautiful music was awesome. It was like, what? I had to open my eyes. Mormon Tabernacle again? Because I thought, where are all the extra voices coming from? Beautiful work, Dalton. Just beautiful, beautiful work. So I am going to share a few things about some of the ideas that I've carried about the crucifixion. There's times when my daughter was in a choir in Berkeley, and they would often sing around this time of year in cathedrals, and there would be in these cathedrals the blanket over the cross, so you knew what was under there. It was like, it just seemed sort of spooky. And And other times I've visited some churches, and from the Interfaith Forum, I go up to another center here, another beautiful church, and the crosses are all around. And I think this is just so interesting, this symbol of the cross. And so I invite us to kind of reflect on, from a metaphysical point of view, what the cross might mean to you. And this idea of it's holy, it's a holy symbol, and it's a symbol of that any kind of symbology has deep, deep meaning that only you yourself can intuit and feel. But think about some of these words that I'm looking through my notes because I wanted to share what this particular author expressed about the cross. Because the central theme has always been the crucifixion and the resurrection, most often through the Christian tradition. But looking at it from a spiritual perspective, a little bit different from maybe our point of view, the idea starts to translate into divine consciousness, this vertical knowing of who we are, and then crossing through is our humanity, our experience as the human being, and our lifeline through that. And in the center is the heart, is the calling of the heart. So listen to this, the continued use of sometimes it seems like a myth of our sinful nature and our unworthiness is represented by the cross in some traditions. But think about this universal presence and this timeless presence that is forever operating through us as us. That there is no separation in that cross. There's no separation. One. We have this sense of a unified beingness. And there's another translation that has often been from the divine on the cross, and I'm just going to speak to this briefly. When Jesus was on the cross and he said that moment, why hast thou forsaken me? Do you remember that little piece? And that always kind of made me pause, made me wonder. Jesus, a highly evolved mystic, so in tune, his teaching was about God in me, as me, dwells in me, as me. And yet there's this moment of his moment on the cross and him saying that. I would always question. So this author writes about the Aramaic translation, misinterpretation of the phrase. And so how it was described, I tried to say it at the 9 o'clock service and I totally butchered it, so I'm not even going to be on tape or anywhere recorded as I try to say it Aramaically. But it was translated the first time, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? When they had it was just one word and a few letters within that word. It was supposed to say, my God, it is for this purpose I have come. And that opens up so much to me on, some of the guilt and the ways that we all carry our own cross, if we wanted to use that as a symbol in our way. But so I look at that, my God, it is for this purpose I have come. So when you're in one of the trials of your experience, is this why you have come? And you can soften into the intuitive grace of the divine, knowing that the true message is being received. I just value that insight. And there's a further explanation here of the cross, also sharing that I'm so sorry, I'm flipping around here, but there's so much I want to share. The idea of the higher self and this unified field and this Christhood, this Christ consciousness that dwells here within us. So at the crucifixion, it proved that the human body can triumph over what we call physical death, which is the transition from our flesh and bloodness to our ethereal spiritual body, proved our physical bodies, once fully spiritualized, are not subject to physical limitations. Now that is the words of a couple of ministers that dove into this translation and this understanding from a metaphysical heart to try to make sense of a story, an archetypal story that runs through all society. So this Easter, as we celebrate, well, what is my divine birthright here and my human experience as I walk this path? And this beautiful message to roll away the stones in your own journey. Think about that. Think about the stone over the cave of your own heart. What have you put there before your own heart that keeps you from having that quantum experience, from having that holy understanding that we long for in the depth of any anguish of our prayers when we've lost our way? So we think of roll away the stone of my perceived limitations, roll away the stone of my belief in any kind of illness, roll away the stone that says I'll never find my good, roll away the stone that says you're not good enough, smart enough, thin enough, healthy enough, talented enough, roll away the stone. Roll away the stone and find rebirth, renewal, a sense of I am that I am, as I claim that word and I claim that power, as I allow myself to allow the symbol of the cross to bolster me, not burden me, to bolster me to my divine birthright. So I find that when we have the ears to hear and the eyes to see the scriptures in a new way, we awaken. We awaken and we celebrate into a new commitment on our spiritual journey. And today is a day that is dedicated in this ritual that we will be doing shortly. This is a ritual designed for you to partake in. Sri Aurobindo is a Hindu mystic, a yogi, and Charlie and I had the privilege to visit his ashram when we were in India. This gentleman has passed away, but he was one of the last teachers of Ernest Holmes. And Sri Aurobindo had a wife that she was devotedly known as the mother in the village. And she had a gift. She had a gift of having the plants speak to her, flowers in particular, and she's written volumes of the messages of the plant world and the sense from the trees and the plants and the colors and their divine message that silently are speaking to us at all times. But Sri Aurobindo takes us into this communion with nature. And I am so grateful for the people that have been caring for our grounds on the landscape team and all the volunteers that have come forth. And I watch our grounds continually reshaping, renewing, and we have lost so much grandeur out there in our forest. And I still ache. I ache when I see these trees, these huge, massive oak laying on their sides. I'm thinking, oh my, have we done this to you? You could not hold us any of our worries and sorrows anymore, and you fell over. You know, it's like, have I done that? And no one's helping you up. And I just commune with that and drive by the many unattended areas because we have a lot of work to do. Ever since the fires, we have so much work to bond with Mother Nature again and to say we are right here. It is why I am here, to reach out and to care. So commune with nature. Spend the time with your flower today in communion. But listen to these beautiful words. Commune with nature as sun sets. Become silent and look at the flowers and the trees. This communion with nature, you will feel the rising from the earth, from below the roots of the trees, and mounting upward and coursing through their fibers, up to the highest outstretching branches, the aspiration of intense love and longing, a longing for something that brings light and gives happiness, for the light that is gone and that which we wish to have back again, a yearning so pure and intense that if you can feel the movement of the trees, your own being will go up in an ardent prayer for the peace and the light and the love that is not manifested here now. And you realize this communion, this love of the divine, all plants, all trees, he reminds us, are struggling to catch the light, Think of the sunflower, how you can plant it along your fence line and think, oh, that's going to be so pretty. And then when they grow up and they turn and they face the neighbor's yard, right? And you're going, what? But you realize that's where the light is. That's where the sun is. Can't do anything about it. So think about all these plants trying to twist 100 different ways to be in the sun, just to be in the light. The urge, the movement to push towards the light. The plant in itself is worshiping light, the divine quality of light itself. Light becomes the symbol of the divine, the manifest form of the divine. I love when Sri Aurobindo says that. I'm thinking, oh, yes, of course, the light of the divine. That is a way we can see that which we think we cannot see. The light, and it allows color. And it allows blossoms. It allows everything to renew and to grow and to transform and to renew itself. Light. Light becomes the symbol of the divine, manifesting its form, ultimately the supreme consciousness. Plants and flowers find it as their only aspiration. As we go into the simplicity of the flower itself, from the very seed when it was planted into the earth with an intention to grow into what it was meant to be. And then we see it blossom into a color, into a radiance, into a calling. That one's mine. And maybe you're sitting there right now going, yeah, I want that yellow one. Yeah, the pink one's got my name on it. And maybe some of you are wandering over there to those 2 roses, but those are Mary's and mine. Yeah. We got those as a gift from Jean Wolpat's yard, so those are ours. But plants need this sunlight. We need this sunlight. We need to stretch ourselves to find this light. And this vital consciousness, this force, is acting on our very cellular body. The plant in its pure, intuitive form is calling us to remind us of this truth. And as we allow ourselves not to shrink away, but to really allow the plant to speak to us and bring this healing, this pleasure, and allow ourselves to just be. Can I be with pleasure and pain? Can I be with sleep and wakefulness? Can I be with the vital parts of this earth and let it light my way, let it express in its silence and its beauty, in its silence and its beauty. You might think when we're talking about this, those are going to be magic flowers, they're going to speak to me. Yeah, they will. In the silence of your own heart, you're going to feel this wake up to their silence and to their beauty as you hold it as the vital element that radiates truth, that radiates beauty. So as you receive your flower today in a few moments, we're going to have beautiful background ambiance with our Heart Sangha choir. We're going to have the practitioners standing in service to you, holding a consciousness of your higher good as you walk forward. As you do that walk of grace, to receive the gift of nature, to receive the gift of the divine, and to hold it as a holy object, and to watch it as you place it somewhere in your home, or give it to another, but you watch it go through its stages. But its essence has spoken to you the moment you make that contact, the moment you reach forth and say, this one's mine. I claim this truth for me today, this light. So allow this experience today to be filled with a loving reverence, to be influenced by a truth that we're sharing today. Be in this contact with your own divinity today. Let it be a practice and making it so personal that the gift of the flower of the essence is not wasted. It has been chosen. It has been cultivated for this divine purpose, for this divine moment, to transmit its subtle beauty into your heart, into your awakening. So much to say. We rise again. We allow our wounds to be seen, just as the Christ Jesus did. Our wounds are here, but I rise again. I rise again, and I am here, and I am in service to the divine. I am that instrument as it fills my heart. Let's all join in that knowing, because we are each on that path. So I'll invite Judy up to play beautiful music and think now, here's another sound of love coming into your being. As you close your eyes and you think about what has been my quantum experience, what has been mine? Where have I woken up? Where is my love? And as we sit in the question, it is revealed. Light is consciousness. Light is God. Light is love. We breathe it. We feel it. We're together, gathered on this holy day to renew our understanding and to resurrect those aspects of who we are in service to love itself. So right here and now, we each claim the quality of the essence of the flower of beauty. In its silent beauty, it is speaking each one to our individual heart space. And we are so grateful, so thankful, so richly awakened to this day, to the joy of the children, to the beauty of the choir, to the person sitting before me, behind me, next to me. I'm so grateful. I have a place to bring my heart and to wake up into the light of a greater understanding of what it means to be a divine instrument. I am right here, Lord, right here, Christ, right here, Spirit. Whatever name we call one another, I'm right here in love. So I give thanks and I release this word. I know we're already blessed. We walk in truth and light. And we simply celebrate all that is. And so it is. Thank you. So choir's going to come up.